Hello everybody, my name is JoyofCrimeArt, and the world of adult animation is a very interesting place. Because as big as shows like, say, Infinity Train or The Owl House might be within the cartoon community, they pale in comparison to the overall cultural relevance that shows like Family Guy, South Park, and Rick and Morty have. That's mainly because adult animation simply doesn't have the same stigma surrounding it that animation aimed at kids have. It appeals to a casual market of people who may not have interest in animation otherwise, which allows for their success. So it makes sense that there be a lot of companies out there that want their own piece of the adult animation pie. I feel like this happens every few years or so, where a channel that doesn't have much experience with animation tries launching their own adult animation block that usually ends up not really going anywhere. Spike TV tried it back in 2003, Fox tried it with their ADHD block back in 2013, and TBS straight up gave up before even making an attempt. They're the smartest ones here. However, these blocks aren't what I want to talk about today. As for today, I want to talk about the most recent attempt for a newcomer to enter the adult animation scene, and that would be SYFY's TZGZ block. Reading interviews from people who actually worked on the block is actually kind of interesting. To quote NBC Universal President of Cable Entertainment Chris McCummer, quote, "The North Star here is to find a Rick and Morty. That's one of my favorite shows, hands down. You find a Rick and Morty, it'll be everywhere." Basically, the block was going for the Blumhouse model. Make a lot of shows on a really tight budget and hope that one of them sticks. Which isn't the worst idea out there. It's what Adult Swim's been doing for almost an entire run, and it's one of the biggest adult animation blocks out there. So clearly the same strategy worked for SYFY, right?
You serious?
TZGZ ended in 2021 after only 2 years. But what caused the block to fail? And was anything of value lost? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. So let's dive in as we talk about SYFY's weird adult animation block, TZGZ. Now I know what you're probably wondering by now. What the crap does TZGZ stand for? Well, you see, dear viewer, it doesn't actually stand for anything. Rather, the name is supposed to indicate that the block comes on after SYFY. Get it? TZGZ? SYFY? Reasons TZGZ bombed number 1. The stupid impossible to pronounce name. Reason TZGZ bombed number 2. The time slot. TZGZ did not have the best time slot. You see, for those who don't keep up with SYFY nowadays, it's mostly just a movie channel at this point, and since movies have inconsistent runtimes, especially when you factor in things like commercials, it was not uncommon for TZGZ to get preempted, with advertisements listing TZGZ's start time as 12-ish on Saturday nights, usually around 12:05 AM Eastern Standard Time, which is just horrible marketing. Like, I'm sure a lot of people who tuned in at 12 and saw the block wasn't on probably ended up changing the channel assuming they just got the time wrong. How do you expect people to watch your block when they don't even know exactly what time it starts? Look, all I'm saying is it's not a good sign when SYFY cares more about reruns of Hancock over their original programming. And not only that, but airing at 12:05 on Saturday nights means I was also competing with Adult Swim's Toonami block. And granted, Toonami doesn't perform the greatest or anything, but when you're a newcomer in the world of animation and trying to make a name for yourself, it's best to have as little competition as possible. If people have to choose between Your Block or Attack on Titan Season 4, often regarded as one of the greatest singular seasons of anime ever, which do you think they're gonna pick? They should have aired it on Friday nights or earlier on Saturday before Toonami started. TZGZ initially launched relying mostly on acquired programming like Futurama and Gary and His Demons, with original animated shorts airing in between. I mean, Futurama's a great series, and Gary and His Demons seems pretty alright from the little bits I've seen of it. But still, at this point, I felt like SYFY was just testing the waters to see if their main audience would be interested in the block before deciding to commit to producing full original content. But eventually, in 2020, the block started airing full-length original series, 5 in total from what I was able to gather. And these are the series I want to mainly focus on, starting with their first series to premiere on the block, Magical Girl Friendship Squad.
Daisy, why is there a raccoon on her couch?
I am not a raccoon. I have taken the form of a red panda. My species is endangered, much like your world.
Magical Girl Friendship Squad follows the adventures of Alex and Daisy, two 20-something-year-old millennial girls from New York who, due to a misunderstanding, are chosen by an all-powerful celestial red panda named Nut to become magical girls and protect the universe from all types of supernatural foes. It's like Sailor Moon, only raunchier, and more girl boss. The series is probably the most well-known show on TZGZ, as it was actually fairly well talked about prior to release. Granted, the things people were saying about it weren't exactly positive, but hey, at least people were talking about it. That's more than I can say about every other show I'm going to be talking about in this video. The main criticism it drew was accusation that the show came off as preachy woke pandering due to the abundance of relatable millennial jokes and the diversity of the main cast. If you saw my thoughts on Master of the Universe Revelations, you'll know that I don't really care about how woke a show is as long as it manages to be good in its own right. So how does this series hold up? Let's start with the characters themselves, Alex and Daisy. They're honestly pretty good leads. Alex is the responsible but neurotic one, while Daisy is the hot-headed slacker. While these are tropes that have been done many times before, they have pretty good chemistry with each other. That is also a good character, working well as a stern mentor who may not have things as together as she thinks she does. The three have a pretty fun dynamic. There actually are some episodes that dive a bit deeper into the characters in order to try giving them a bit more depth, and while not groundbreaking by any means, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a pleasant surprise. The series' comedy is a bit hit or miss, however, as yes, there are a lot of relatable millennial jokes as well as Stale's attempts at edgy humor that often fall flat. Real lame stuff like the two only being able to get their powers by sticking their fingers up Nut's butthole, or the two choosing a bong and birth control pills as their magical artifacts that activate their powers, resulting in all their attacks being bong and birth control themed. Like, I don't know, man, what do you want me to say? It just feels so juvenile. However, when the comedy does work is when it's more character-based. I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh a few times while watching the show.
Okay, geez. Then go to the doctor.
You know I don't have health insurance. I mean, I would be included on yours if you hadn't selfishly refused to marry me.
The animation is interesting. The show's art style looks right out of one of those how to draw manga books. However, I don't know, I think there's a bit of a charm to it. The show was a parody of anime after all, so the how to draw manga book art style almost kind of fits. It reminds me a lot of Kappa Mikey in a way. The designs themselves are actually pretty decent. It's nice seeing a show with such thick black outlines. I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while, and the color scheme is really nice and vibrant. The actual animation itself, on the other hand, is pretty choppy, resulting in the action scenes looking pretty subpar most of the time. The series tells an overarching story with some more fillery episodes sprinkled throughout. And honestly, while not the greatest thing ever, I think they did a pretty good job for what it was trying to do. The finale also manages to introduce a lot of new elements that could be expanded upon had the show gotten a second season, like one of the villains ends up turning good, another villain is revealed to be an ex-lover of Nut, and a greater scope villain is introduced known simply as the Emptier, voiced by Jason Mantzoukas. Like, you can't tell me that's not funny. It's this all-powerful cosmic being of pure destruction and entropy, and he's played by Alex from Close Enough. I love it.
Our work on Earth, and its creator is here for you to personally annihilate.
Excellent! I am pleased with your servitude.
Magical Girl Friendship Squad actually started life as a series of shorts that would air in between longer programming on TZGZ during commercial breaks prior to being picked up for a series. And these shorts, while not being canon, are interesting to look back on as a sort of pilot, and as a way to see where the series could have ended up had it continued, as some plot points introduced in those shorts aren't carried over into the series explicitly, such as the implication the conflict might not be so black and white, with Nut not being as benevolent as she appears, an aspect that's hinted at in the series proper but never fully addressed. Magical Friendship Squad is far from a perfect show, and it's not going to be for everyone. If you saw the images and trailers for the series and thought it looked bland, I don't think there's going to be anything in here that will really change your mind on it. But I honestly had some fun with it. If the series had gotten a second season and touched up a few of the bigger issues, I think the show could have been great. I feel like the concept has great potential.
Whoa! Sweet rig, Darby!
Oh, you teased. Souped her up a little bit.
Love the paint job. Super metal.
What? What the? Ugh, fucking humans.
Next we have Wildlife, which wins the award for most generic name. The series follows the day-to-day life of a bunch of zoo animals living in the post-apocalypse. However, the whole apocalypse thing really doesn't play that big of a role except for maybe like 2 episodes. Glenn is the dorky, kind-hearted wimp. Darby's the cool one. Marnie's the girl next door that Glenn wants to bang. Hudson is the wild one that no one likes. Vivi is the hothead slacker. Again. And Debbie is literally just Ponyhead from Star vs. the Forces of Evil. The cast can be a bit unlikable at times, as is the case with a lot of adult anime cartoons. Like, they regularly talk about how much they like killing mutated humans, seemingly for the fun of it, but they do play off each other well. The show has a bit of a Friends vibe to it. It's a very chill series. The animation is very... not good, yeah, I can't sugarcoat. The show is not the best to look at. The series was done with Adobe Animate, and you can tell that they did not have a very high budget, as the crew for the entire series is only about 40 or 50 people, so I guess I can't knock it too hard. The comedy is okay, some of the jokes land, especially when they evolve the different characters playing off one another, but a lot of it's your typical, look, drugs, and sex. Isn't that funny? Style jokes. Just edgy jokes that fail at even being edgy. Wildlife is okay. It might not be the funniest show or have the best animation, it does have some good character dynamics and a bit of a more laid-back atmosphere that made it somewhat enjoyable. Not an awful show by any means, but I'm putting it below Magical Girl Friendship Squad. Is there anything else I can say about this show? Let's see. Vivi the Sloth is played by Natalie Paladimas, who voiced Buttercup in the 2016 Powerpuff Girls reboot. The series won't stop invading my life.
I haven't been in the basement for a few years, but I'm pretty sure we have an old TV and a dusty couch. Good enough for me. Let's watch some TV.
Next we have Hell's Den, which technically started out as an Inquirer series from Drink TV before moving to TZGZ for its second season. As such, I wasn't able to watch the first season on Peacock, but this is a sketch show, so I don't think I have much to worry about in terms of continuity. The series follows a kid named Andy and his monster friends living in a post-apocalyptic hellscape and just watching TV. Like I said, it's a sketch show, with the sketches being made up of edited and redubbed footage from the public domain. If nothing else, I can see at least the show has a unique premise, however that's really all the show is going for it. Like, I'm not gonna say that none of the sketches got a laugh out of me, but they were very few and far between. And being a sketch show, if you don't find the comedy funny, there isn't much else to latch onto. I can't even enjoy the animation because most of the show is just public domain footage, and mostly live action public domain footage at that. The parts that are animated look terrible! Seriously, this is the ugliest cartoon so far. Andy and his friends are pretty much nothing burger characters and really only exist to break up the sketch. Watching the show, I struggled to keep my focus on it. Kept finding myself going on Twitter or something while watching it. Also, while the premise is kind of unique on paper, this definitely feels like the cheapest show so far, relying so much on public domain footage and hardly any actual animation. Out of all the shows, that has the most experimental early adult swim feel to it. But it was not enough to save it, unfortunately. This is probably my least favorite series so far.
You're Devil's new assistant.
What can you do to plus this place?
I was the social media manager.
Social media is exactly what hell's been missing!
I assumed you invented it.
Next we have Devil May Care. The show follows Beans, a young social media manager who upon dying finds himself trapped in hell and is forced to work as the devil's assistant, as the devil is attempting to gentrify hell in order to help improve its reputation. Honestly, not a bad premise. Beans is a pretty likable character, even if he is a bit bland. Though weirdly, it feels like the show doesn't really focus on him all that much, despite him being the character that we the audience are supposed to relate to. Instead, the show focuses more on the devil, voiced by Alan Tudyk. The voice performance is good, I mean it's Alec Tudyk after all, though I feel like the show is kind of inconsistent with how he's written. Sometimes he's depicted as being somewhat of a jerk who enjoys tormenting people, other times he's treated as someone who's supposed to be nice if not somewhat annoying, you know, in sort of a subvert your expectations kind of way. With him not being depicted as pure evil, but rather as someone who's just doing their job. The show also has some other side characters too, like 25th US President William McKinley, the devil's right-hand man who wants to take control of hell for himself and acts as the show's butt monkey. It's a fun idea for a character, but he just reminds me too much of the bad guy from Planet Sheen. I couldn't really get into him all that much. There's some interesting ideas here on how this version of hell works, though like the devil himself, the show doesn't really seem to be able to make up its mind on whether or not life in hell is supposed to be torture or comedically mundane. The comedy is kind of hit or miss, just like all the other shows I talked about. A lot of the humor feels very in-your-face adult, though some jokes I found funny. I was actually surprised by the number of deep-cut religious jokes the series have. They really caught me off guard and are pretty well researched.
Why would a loving God send bears to maul 42 kids just because they ridiculed a bald guy? Huh?
Doesn't say that.
It does.
Oh, whoa, it does! That is insane! Who wrote this?
This is a show that I feel like has a lot of great ideas but stumbles on the execution. As is, the show just feels kind of unfocused. The series ends on a cliffhanger, which is a shame. While not the best series, I do feel like it has some potential. Could have improved given more seasons to really flesh out the characters and the world building. But judging it for what it is, it's alright. Put it about equal to Wildlife. This show has higher highs, but Wildlife just feels more consistent overall.
Christmas is supposed to be about coming together. And what happened here tonight is not merry.
I don't know. Coups are pretty coup, if you ask me.
And this was a good one. This was a coup. I'll give you that.
I mean, if we're being honest, it was a 6 out of 10 at best.
And lastly, we have The Pole. The series is a sort of political dramedy that focuses on the eternal politics within the North Pole, tackling issues of systemic sexism and corruption in politics through a holiday lens. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds a lot like the plot of Santa Inc. Well yes, but this show actually came out first, premiering in June of 2021, while Santa Inc. didn't come out till December 2021.
You straight up copied me! You don't know that. I saw you do it! Homage may be the word you're looking for? So you're admitting that you copied?
Who premieres a Christmas show in June? The main focus is the titular Claus family. Santa's your typical bumbling dope who gets into a lot of problematic incidents behind closed doors, like doing drugs and having an extramarital affair with one of his elves. However, he's not really treated as a terrible guy. He's clearly trying to do right. He just gets too tempted by his vices. And you can tell that he does care about the children he's supposed to be out there to help. Mrs. Claus is also an interesting character, being more of the cynical brains behind the operation, manipulating people in order to do what she feels is right in order to protect Christmas and Santa's reputation, despite her not actually really liking Santa all that much. I got a bit of a Hillary Clinton vibe from her. And finally there's Blackjack, Santa and Mrs. Claus's son and central antagonist to the series, who is disillusioned with the corruption of the North Pole and wants to take it over as a means of spiting his father, who is too busy being Santa to be there for him growing up. But the show shines with the family drama as well as the political drama. The show actually has some interesting ideas going for it. One of the driving points in the plot is the idea that Santa wants to start giving toys to naughty kids, something that is treated like a divisive political topic within the North Pole. As Blackjack puts it, is it fair to have nice kids get less toys just so everybody can get some toys? The show outright compares it to socialism, but I feel like it can be interpreted in some other ways too. Like, I sort of saw it like a metaphor for prison reform, as Santa believes the naughty or nice system is too binary. Is the purpose of the nihilist just to punish naughty kids, or could giving a toy to a naughty kid help turn their life around? Like, if a kid acts out but only does so because they have a bad home life or are going through with tough family issues, should they still be punished regardless? The show also uses naughty kids as a way to tackle populism, with naughty kids acting as the outgroup. I think the political commentary works well here because it is a bit of a moral gray area, and feels like issues that would exist within the world the series creates. Unfortunately, a lot of these topics aren't really explored all that much, as despite the show actually making a pretty morally gray situation, the series just kind of tells you what side you're supposed to be on. While the show's drama isn't actually half bad, its comedy is where it falls the most flat. I feel like out of all the series, this is the one that's most in your face with its raunchiness. It's all the same in your face edgy jokes all the other TZGZ series suffer from, but now it's Santa doing it. Ooh. So to be fair, at least the edginess of the jokes here does work its way into the plot, as the series deals with Santa being essentially cancelled for his bad behavior. You kind of need these jokes here to make the story work. And like all the other shows I mentioned, there are still a few jokes that land. The animation also isn't very good. The show looks like it's from 2007, not 2021. Though I have to admit, while the animation is still bad, it's sort of bad in like a nostalgic kind of way, which does have a bit of a charm to it. Like, I remember a time when cartoons used to look like this. The Pole was the most serialized show on TZGZ, with each episode leading directly into the next. The series ends on a cliffhanger. But despite its flaws, I would still put this show as one of the better series. Below Magical Girl Friendship Squad, but above Wildlife and Devil May Care. And that's it, I've gone over all the full-length original series that TZGZ aired. Despite each show feeling fairly different from one another, I feel like there are some common threads between them all. One is that they all feel very cheaply made. It does not feel like SYFY or NBC Universal or whoever gave the show much of a budget. It reminds me of early Adult Swim in a way, even if the budget does seem to be at least a little bit higher than those shows. Second, as I mentioned before, I feel like a lot of these shows suffer from an over-reliance of crude and raunchy humor. I'm fine with adult shows having crass humor, there's nothing wrong with that. But you gotta make it actually funny. You can't just have characters smoking weed and licking toads and dropping the F-bomb every few seconds. It's 2022, that stuff isn't edgy anymore. And I'm not saying that none of these shows were funny, many of them were, but they usually shine best when the comedy came from other places. However, one thing I did feel throughout all the series I talk about was ambition. With all the series I watched, I never got the impression that they weren't trying. There was creativity in all of them. It feels like the crew behind these shows came in without much experience or budget, but tried to make the best show they could regardless. While that may not have resulted in the best products ever, I can still respect the tenacity. TZGZ ended in 2021, which is a shame because it feels like SYFY had some real plans for the block. Chronicles of Frank and the Black Hole, the latter of which would have been done in stop motion and co-created by the creator of Moral Oral. And considering that both Devil May Care and The Pole ended on cliffhangers and Magical Girl Friendship Squad ended in a way that set up a second season, it seems like SYFY was expecting this block to be a success. But that's not what ended up happening. Bringing me to my final point, reason TZGZ bomb number 3, a crowded market. Getting into any market is hard, and when you have a market as crowded as the adult animation market is, the odds aren't going to be in your favor. The people who are into raunchy adult animation cartoons like this probably aren't going to be watching SYFY because they're probably already watching Adult Swim. Now, do I think it would have been impossible for TZGZ to be successful? Not necessarily, but it was always going to be an uphill battle. If it were to succeed, it would need to have a bigger push than I think SYFY was willing to give it. They need to have a more consistent time slot, better promotion, and more time to grow its audience, and shows that did more to make themselves stand out among the sea of similar raunchy adult comedies. A killer app that would stand out from the crowd and convince people to tune in week after week. I know I made fun of TZGZ a lot in this video, but honestly, and this could just be my low expectations going in, but a lot of the shows were better than I was expecting them to be. The one I would say I really disliked was Hell's Den, and even that was hardly the worst show ever. I would have loved for TZGZ to have been more of a success. The more companies have an interest in creating anime programming, the better, as it would not only allow for more series to just be made in general, but also help create more competition, which would lead to better products overall for us, the consumer. Alas though, it was not meant to be. The shows on TZGZ may not have been the success that SYFY wanted them to be, but I hope I was at least able to shine a light on this strange piece of animation history. All the series I talk about are available to watch for free on Peacock if you have any interest in checking any of these shows out for yourself. If you saw any of the shows that aired on TZGZ, what did you think of them? And should I cover other obscure and short-lived TV blocks in the future? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love hearing from you guys and hearing what you think. And if you like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon if you want to see more videos like it. And as always, have a great day.